I was not doing the thing that I should be doing, but I had already learned so much about the position. I felt like I unlocked an understanding of what others need in this role. And I really wanted to give back. I always was passionate about small businesses and entrepreneurs. And so this not only gave me an opportunity to become an entrepreneur, but to service entrepreneurs.
Thanks for checking out today's episode of The Experience Curve, where we explore the personal journeys of accomplished individuals, breaking down the steps they took to get where they are, which I hope just might inspire you on your own path forward. On today's show, I'm joined by Valerie Trapunsky, founder and CEO of Chatterboss. In this episode, we will uncover truly understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, insights into the challenges and triumphs of the relationship between entrepreneurs and virtual assistants, valuable strategies for building a supportive team culture and leveraging human-centric approaches to delegation for business success, and balancing the demands of being a CEO and a new parent. Now, with a decade of experience as a top-level assistant for A-list celebrities, Valerie is no stranger to the fast-paced, high-pressure environments that define the entertainment and business worlds. She's on a mission to revolutionize the way entrepreneurs and virtual assistants collaborate, transforming the traditional notion of assistants as mere task doers into strategic partners dedicated to the success of their clients' businesses. Valerie's unique blend of experience, expertise, and an unwavering dedication to empowering others makes her the perfect guide for anyone looking to turn their entrepreneurial dreams into reality. Hey, Valerie, thanks for your time today. Congratulations, obviously, on your newborn. I do appreciate you taking the time. I know everything is busy in your life right now, but I am very excited to talk with you. So again, thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to be with me.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited for the chat. It's a nice, different kind of distraction.
Yes, that's a good way to put good way to put it. But reading about you and your stories is cool. Like you being this like personal assistant to like A-list celebrities to becoming this entrepreneur in a different industry. Like it's not like the path that you would think most people take. And that's what intrigued me the most is like where you were and then where you are now. Could you talk about like what maybe sparked that interest in you being with these sort of A-list celebrities and then like to being your own boss now?
You know, I like to say that it's probably very similar for lots of entrepreneurs where the road is so not linear, so not how you would have imagined. And I definitely wouldn't have imagined this direction for myself. And so my career took a number of different pivots. At first, I was working in advertising and I thought that I would be the CEO of an advertising agency one day. And life had other plans. I got an opportunity to work as a personal assistant. And it was a position that really opened my eyes to the power of that assistant role, to the necessity of the assistant role. I saw how extreme high performers use assistants to leverage their growth, to leverage their time, to stay healthy, to stay on track, to reach their goals. And I really saw how this assistant position becomes like a superpower for the individual that is working alongside an assistant. What I also saw in that role was that this position that I believed to be a monogamous position where you have one principal and one assistant, I was amongst a number of assistants, sometimes the third or fourth assistant on the team. And what I saw there was that you can create a team of assistants that lean into each other's strengths and cover for each other's weaknesses. And they don't have to be the Jill or the jack of all trades as assistants are often seen. And that allows both the assistants to go further. And then, of course, the principal to go and achieve all of the things that they're looking to achieve. And when I talk about the strengths and weaknesses and the not being the Jill of all trades, what I learned about myself in those years of working as an assistant is that I shouldn't be an assistant. My strengths are not in the traditional assistant archetype. I am, for example, somebody that is extremely flexible. I do great in crisis situations, but I don't do well in situations where there's a lot of time and everything has to be organized and on a checklist. And that is a requirement for many assistant positions. And so, what I felt towards the end of that kind of that chapter of my career, I was not doing the thing that I should be doing, but I had already learned so much about the position. I felt like I unlocked an understanding of what others need in this role. And I really wanted to give back. I always was passionate about small businesses and entrepreneurs. And so this not only gave me an opportunity to become an entrepreneur, but to service entrepreneurs. And I say that I didn't really have a choice, right? I didn't have any other idea. I didn't have any other path. I wanted to leverage the momentum that I already got in my career and do something with it. And my mind was much more entrepreneurial than it, like I'm much more a visionary than an integrator. And so I feel very, very lucky to be doing what I love to be doing.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I personally started out, before I was a production assistant in movie sets and stuff, but then I moved into being like an assistant at a corporate level. But within that, not my boss, but other assistants within that sort of like bullpen of assistants at the film department, you could see they did become personal assistants. Oh, can you pick up my kid after school? Can you take my dry cleaning? Can you do this? Weren't really roles that were part of the corporate job, your responsibilities, but nonetheless, you do kind of bridge the gap sometimes when personal things are needed. And it's cool that you knew, like, hey, I'm not this personality type, but you knew where your strengths and weaknesses are, which is again like such a forward thinking thing for what most people would assume it at that age, right? Like what steps do you take? Where do you go from there? And where you're like, okay, I know this is not for me, or parts of this are, parts of this aren't, I'm better suited here. What sort of steps do you take from there?
So I think that, you kind of like the way that you phrased it made me think that all of us really know where our strengths and weaknesses are if we are open to keeping our eyes open. And I think that a lot of the time it's super scary to admit where your weaknesses are, because sometimes we build a persona, we build a life, we build a career around the way that we are seen or the way that we are supposed to be or the way that we believe that we are perceived. And that's what it was, particularly in the assistant role. I walked around constantly feeling like if I unmask, I'm going to lose everything that I worked for, right? Because I would be saying that I'm not good at the job that I am wanting to have, right? Or the position that I am in. And so that was a really tough pill to swallow. So I think like that's step number one. The world really unlocks for us when we're honest with ourselves, because the more that we like dig this hole of like, I'm just going to keep doing it because I've been doing it. And then sometimes you're like, I could keep doing it even though I don't love it, but now I'm like on autopilot because I've like clocked my 10,000 hours, right? But our world opens up when we are doing the things that we love, that we're like naturally good at, where our natural aptitude is. So I think definitely, just kind of being honest with ourselves and then holding ourselves accountable to creating a career for ourselves that is anchored in those areas that we're really strong at. I didn't imagine myself to get into this path. I think that many entrepreneurs kind of don't. And I think that, 7 years ago, it was also not like, oh, this is a path. I think now in schools, right, there are like programs to be entrepreneurs. Like you are trained to be an entrepreneur. I think 7 years ago, it was just really, okay, let me just like try my hand at this. So I think, following what we love and then setting up, and whether it's starting our own business or going to work for people that we are inspired by, but definitely, working inside of our zone of genius.
But how do you take that from an idea of like, okay, I'm going to start this company? Is it just you at the time? Are you bringing on people right away, one or two people, or like, how does it start?
I think it's a great question. And for me personally, those first stages of starting the business were the hardest, just because all you have at the very beginning is an idea, and it's like it's so shaky, it's so sensitive, it's so like not grounded in anything. And so you hope that this like seed is gonna like just really like get implanted, and you as the person, as the, kind of as the entrepreneur, you're really the only one who knows the potential of the seed that's in your hand. But to everybody else, it's like they don't see it, they don't know it. You have to stand so firm in what you're about to be building. I think that you have to get buy-in. Even if you're going to be a solo founder, I'm a solo founder. I never ended up having partners in the business. And for me, it was very important at that stage to get then advisors, to get friends, to find people who have done this journey so that I could anchor onto them so that they can tell me, hey, I can do it. That was very, very important, because at the beginning you really question yourself so much. And so, but the more steps you take, the more roots your idea starts to take. And then once it becomes really substantial and real and it can stand on its legs, I think it gets much easier. But definitely, like, speaking it out loud, having other people who are going to be positive in with your idea and really encourage you, I think is the most critical. And then of course there's like tactical things, right? Some people say don't create an LLC. I made an LLC right away. That, for me, I did that because it made it real. So I think you can divide it, like, what are the steps that are going to make this feel real for me so that I can keep going? And then what are the tactical things? And I'll say that, especially people that are like doing their second or third business, that understand the value of their time and have some capital that they're bringing into the business to start, or people that are executives leaving the corporate world, starting a business, a lot of them will start their first hire, or their first person that's supporting them will be a fractional assistant, because again, it gives like more fire to the reality of what you're doing. You now have a partner to bounce ideas off of. You have somebody to be interacting with. You have somebody that's going to be bringing on a different perspective. And the administrative, even when you're just starting your business, the administrative world is 30 to 60%. And in the beginning, it may be even higher. Everything is administrative. So the more you can have help on that administrative side so that you can do the creative pieces that are going to bring clients in and bring the revenues in and so on, it goes a long way.
Was that scary for you though? Starting, you said you didn't have any financial backers. Was it a big, like, daunting feeling saying, okay, I'm starting this and now I don't have anyone to help me if this fails. This is my money.
Yeah, it's really scary. And that's why very often, like, we hold on for dear life for the positions or for like where our life is comfortable before making that jump. So that, like, I think so many amazing, incredible ideas never get off the ground because it's a fear. You're jumping off of a cliff and you have to believe that you're going to land somewhere. But what I did with Chatterboss is that I was, for a year leading up to kind of leaving my positions, I was putting money away. I was thinking through how I would launch it. I was working as a virtual assistant on Upwork to understand how those virtual interactions were, because at that time I was an in-person assistant and that's all I knew. And I had already started to dabble in how things would work, but it was like incredible. The moment that I made the decision and the first month that I was 100% all in, everything changed. But I was for many months waiting to be like, oh, when I get a little bit more customers, when I get a little bit more money, then I'll feel comfortable to go all in. And it's like a almost like a cruel way that like the universe works. You're not going to get the assurance until you've jumped. And when you're jumping, you don't see what's in front of you. And so you just have to know, I'm going to go, I'm going to succeed. And yeah, it's scary, but we have to do it.
Yeah, you do. You do. So it's like a mindset shift, right? You have to just say, okay, I'm taking this jump and here I am, right? Is there a point where you're feeling like, okay, it's starting to work? Was it maybe you landed a first client that you felt, okay, what I'm doing is right? Was it hard to find clients? How did you find your first client?
It was hard, but I had a unique advantage in that I had built an app for the service. And that was the first thing that I did for the business. So that's a little bit backwards. Not a little bit, that's a lot backwards, right? You really, like, if I was like to say, like, you're starting a business, is the first thing that you should do, like, invest in a bunch of technology that you didn't test and like don't have an MVP for? No, but that's what I did. And I got lucky that it didn't, like I could have just squandered my money away by doing that. But instead, what happened was that I started getting customers that way. I was the only app in the App Store that offered this service. I was matching dedicated assistant teams in real time. I was doing a lot of the work in real time. So it was very novel. And there were people searching for this in the App Store. So when they were landing, I was able to start working with them right away. So, right away from the first months, I was getting customers that way. And I was also getting very quick feedback because people were just essentially chatting with me. So it was, I think a little bit of, foresight, but a lot of luck in that way.
That's cool. And how did you specifically come up with the name, the branding, like all that kind of comes with the logo? Was that all you? Did you utilize outside sources, or you obviously built an app, like there's a lot of stuff you put into this.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Chatterboss, and that's where, the thing for me with the name of the company, which is like that is like advice that I would give to anyone who's starting out and the kind of thinking, and maybe it's not, maybe like branding experts will say something different, right? But this is where things have landed for me. I think it's important that you get something that's unique. And for me, it was important to get a .com. And I preferred that over any kind of like generic combination or like getting an IO. Like, and I think that proved to be the right decision. And then over time, like as you build your reputation, people get to know who you are. And when I was starting, what's interesting, when I was starting Chatterboss, I had thought that I'm going to be more of a technology company than a services company. And so the original idea was this, software that, predicts like certain steps and like helps in project management. What I learned over time is that technology helps, but I am not a technology expert. What I am an expert in is human interactions and IO psychology. And that is where I really like, even in that interaction or in that experience of building a business, I also had to say, I cannot lean in to an ideal world that I wish that, like the skill set that I have. I can only compete in the areas where are my natural gifts. And so once I moved away, like the technology, like I ended up having great partners for the tech, and we've built something that, allows us to scale. But with that said, the main differentiator of Chatterboss, of who we are, and even what influenced us into how we build our technology is related to that human experience, to the interaction, to the conversation, to the relationships. And so, yeah, I think that you get to really, for anyone like considering starting a business who's like wondering if it's for them, I think that there's no better way to learn about yourself. There's no better way to self reflect, and you learn so many lessons in a very accelerated manner when you have a business.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you did the homework. You knew a lot about yourself. You knew a lot about, what you were trying to achieve, and but you also knew what your weaknesses were. So you were able to say, okay, I'm going to be laser focused on this specific company, and exactly how you built it seems to be right, like what's working for you. Working with these like high level people that you work with, and then customers that you have now, is there like something that these assistants help these entrepreneurs, or these CEOs, whatever they might be? How do they take off the tasks that let these people focus on what matters in their business?
Mm. It's a great question. So, what makes the Chatterboss model unique is that you are paired with your dedicated assistant. The assistant also has a support assistant, so you're paired with a team of two right away. But you also get paired to a dedicated relationship manager, and that relationship manager is like a delegation coach. So, what I've found is that every entrepreneur, every executive needs an assistant. The majority of people do not know where to start. They do not know how to delegate, or they don't know how to delegate effectively to get what they need. So, our structure is that you get started, you have a relationship manager. We build that roadmap for you. So we really analyze what is your administrative world. How can we take these projects off of your hands? What are the priorities? And we really dig into that, because sometimes the things that we say are priority are actually not a priority. It's a highly psychological process of delegating and working in this kind of way. So we've put in a lot of effort into our onboardings, into our relationship managers, into our delegation coaching. We always do webinars and so on. So we work a lot on the mindset. Then we create the tactical tools, that roadmap, and then we arm the entrepreneur and the assistant with that roadmap so that they can hit the ground running. And that is what we attribute to our success.
That's awesome, because you did mention the word delegation a couple times. I sometimes, me, other people have run into CEOs, entrepreneurs, whoever it might be. Not that they're like trust issues, but they do have sometimes of a issue with delegation and what tasks that they feel someone else can handle. Like, how do you sort of work with these clients of yours to sort of put them at ease to say, no, 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 we can handle these tasks. You really do not need to do these, and maybe it's at your level or at the work load you have.
So where we've built our foundation in encouraging and really training entrepreneurs to delegate effectively is, exactly, you've used like a very key word, which is trust. So we want to build trust for you and the assistant. We want to help you create a really good foundation. I like to say that the assistant function is so completely unique because it has an unlimited world of the types of work that you can do. So the kind of like your line of questions is so accurate because people just don't know where to start, because delegation to an assistant is based on your personality, their personality, your line of work, their skill set, your past experience, their past experience. You cannot, without like seeing and talking to the person and really analyzing them, give like a cookie cutter, this is what you're going to need to do. When you go to an accountant, for example, or a CPA, it's a complex job, but it's within boundaries of, this is where we're going to do. And these are like the steps that we're going to take. Whereas with an assistant, it can go into thousands of different combinations of what working with an assistant might look like for you. And you mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, for example, for some people, I need to separate my business assistant from my personal assistant. For some people, I need in one person, both my business and my personal assistant. And so how do we work through? And then that second piece that you were asking is like, how do I build the trust? One, I need to know that the person that I'm bringing on, I can trust. There's a tactical piece to it. Like, am I sharing information in a secure way? Will I not get scammed? This person, so there's like that, right? Which we solve for in a number of different ways in Chatterboss when we are filtering out assistants and we're doing the hiring. Then the second piece is, okay, I have a great person. How do I teach entrepreneurs to trust that they have a great person? I've seen so many relationships fail where you have like a superstar assistant and you are treating them not like a superstar. The relationship fails. So starting with one or two very clear and measurable tasks, that goes a long way. It doesn't have to be something, it should not be something complex at the onset. It should be something simple, something that you know exactly what will be the outcome that you want. So for example, with my assistant right now, the first thing that I had her do when we started our relationship was to book a few flights for me. That's very clear and measurable. It has a beginning, it has an end. I know what a good outcome is. I know what's not a good outcome. I will know by having my assistant do this in a very uncomplicated way whether or not she achieved what I needed her. And if yes, she did, then I have this like dopamine rush in my brain, like, okay, great. So, and I'm starting now to bond with this assistant. Okay, I can trust you. So trust is built little by little. When we see entrepreneurs start with extremely complex projects, you don't know how to tell whether it's working or not until you're like months in. So you've never established the trust. Then you are always questioning. You're then putting like spokes in their wheels and like they can't kind of complete certain things. Like, so starting clear, starting measurable, and starting in like short bursts so that you can say, yes, this was good. So that you can also say, no, it wasn't good. And objectively, we need to part ways. And I know why, versus I'm feeling something's wrong, but I can't put my finger on it. So let me spend another year trying to figure it out, right? If we fail, we want to fail fast in this role. And then you just really want to know what to reward, like when there is success, so that you know that you have a good person working alongside you.
And how, okay, you mentioned that like assistant for yourself, your website, even like you can see, you put pictures of the team, right? So it's a very personal, you kind of get these look like nice people, right? You kind of put a face to the name. How about your overall success with your team, right? Like how much do you lean on them for the success of the company?
Yeah, I mean, I lean on them 100% on the success of my company. I'm very aware of the areas where I want to work in partnership, where I want to have people fill in gaps for like things that I don't know how to do. So I bring in experts, and then I really try very hard to walk the walk with the training that I give entrepreneurs. I don't always succeed, but I try very hard to take my own advice. And so I try to lean on the teams that I have brought on. I try to work inside of their gifts. I try to give them as much freedom as is possible to run. And, an excellent example of this is that as I'm on maternity leave, and I was gone a few months where I was not even looking at anything at all. Right. So there were, now I'm like slowly easing back in, and it feels good, right? Not because I have to, but because I want to. But in the beginning stages where I was like completely unplugged, the team made decisions. And what I'm really proud of, they made decisions better than I would have made them. So it's incredible. I really, we cannot succeed without teams. We cannot succeed alone. It's an illusion for those entrepreneurs who think like I did it. Like it's never I did it. It's always, we did it. And, as leaders, as an entrepreneurs, our job is to light the fire underneath the people that are working with us, to excite them, to respect them, for them to respect us, that like we're in those relationships initially where there's mutual respect. And then, of course, we go so far together. So no, I'm really grateful. I have an incredible team that works with a lot of respect, that really walks shoulder to shoulder, like with our core values. And yeah, we have, I can't say anything. We have an extremely, like, I think, all organizations have their like things, but I feel like we have like a very nice, like healthy dynamic inside of the organization. And it feels also very meaningful that like you've not only created a business that is contributing to the success of other entrepreneurs by giving them an assistant that's like their dream assistant, that, that we also have employees that are like their lives are better because like they're enjoying their time at work. So
Yeah, so you did mention maternity leave and coming back and them doing tasks that ended up being done better than you had ever thought, right? Are you going to shift anything now that you have a child, right? Like, so some entrepreneurs, it's about family time, but you started this before you had. How do you see things shifting for you in your personal life and your business now that you have a child?
So Dan Sullivan, I saw this a number of years ago, and it was like very profound to me, this idea. Dan Sullivan says, as entrepreneurs, we're wired for kind of urgency. We're wired to kind of be up for deadlines. Many of us operate in this way as visionaries. And so the only way to succeed, especially in the beginning stages of your business, is to set up, what is it, like false constraints, right? Like I can work 7 days a week nonstop before having a child, but I shouldn't, because actually too many hours of availability don't create any urgency, and I'm not going to get anything done. I do get things done when there is like extreme deadline. So, his concept is like, don't work a 5 day work week, work a 2 or 3 day work week, even though, and if the other days really like, discipline yourself not to work, even if you don't have anything else to do, because it's going to force you to work within that constraint. And if that's your personality, you're going to get better outcomes than just sitting every single day. And I really related to that concept. So what a gift it is to have children where it's a real time constraint, and you can see much clearer where time is valuable and where it's not. So whereas before I would be taking a lot of conversations, right? And because I like to spin the wheel, I'm like, they're probably like, I could tell that like 10 of these like aren't good, but maybe one of them will surprise me and I don't mind. So I'll do all 10. Now I'm like, unless I have a very clear outcome, this is, I have to have a real clear understanding of like why this is going to contribute to some success or growth. Otherwise, I actually don't have that time. So I'm definitely not going back to the way that things were. Also, my team got so empowered. My team really stepped into certain things, and where I see it working, there's no reason to take it back. So it's a wonderful, for I've seen people experience as entrepreneurs, like when they take a very long vacation, or, sometimes it's like, God forbid, but like they get ill and then like the team steps up, they go traveling for a month, whatever it is. But like our companies need us to step away so that we could get inspired, and so that our teams can show us where they can fill in gaps. We should always be auditing how we're spending our time.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I believe you are writing, or you wrote a book, Delegation Nation.
Yes.
What was the idea behind that? And like, what can would you like readers to take away from it?
I wrote the book to show the perspective of both entrepreneurs and assistants when it comes to delegation and that process, like setting expectations, working together. I wrote it because I was very surprised that, having had the background of being an assistant, feeling the pain of certain, interactions, and like that role can be very challenging. So kind of having that lived experience, when it was time for me to be an entrepreneur, I thought that I would have complete and natural understanding of what it's like now. Like if I have an assistant, I know exactly their experience. So I'll be the best entrepreneur boss ever. And I wasn't. I actually felt a complete switch the moment I stepped into the entrepreneur seat. I struggled delegating to that role, and I didn't have the empathy that I imagined I would, having lived that experience. It was very strange to me. It was almost like double think. Like I could see what I'm doing is not effective delegation, and I couldn't stop myself because it was my nature. And then I realized, if I'm struggling and I have a very real, vivid experience and memory of like, and I know what should be done and I'm still not doing it, what are the chances that entrepreneurs who are wired in the same way, who don't have that experience, they're completely in the blind when it comes to delegation and how to set up that relationship. So I wrote it, for entrepreneurs, for assistants to have successful relationships based on what I saw in my business over those years. But a lot of it also, I wrote it for myself to get these ideas out of my head so that I can make a blueprint. And the biggest takeaway from the book, and you should, whether you're somebody that is like going to get an assistant in the future and you want to set up a good foundation, or you've had relationships that have failed before, or you are, someone for things are going good but you want them to be better, you should pick up a copy of the book. But the biggest takeaway, I would say, is on the topic of over communication. And that is to say, when you're communicating both as the assistant and as the entrepreneur, you want to give more information than you think you need, so that the person is empowered and is understanding of you, because this role is grounded so much in good communication. In order to have good communication, there has to be enough communication. I use the story of, Goldilocks, and it's like, you don't want to give too little, you don't want to give too much, where it's like completely irrelevant and you've confused the person. But too little is like, I'm missing key information that you need to complete this. But I want to give the right amount of like what is needed, but I also like what's like logistically needed to complete the work. But I also want to add on color of why am I doing this? And when I work with my assistant, because I brought this into our like space in the beginning when we started to work together recently, she was working on something for me, or I was briefing her in, and I was on autopilot. I'm like, here's the spreadsheet, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to answer, da, da, da. She's like, Valerie, stop. She's like, can you give me like a 3-second overview of like why I'm doing this? And I'm like, brilliant, because if she knows why, she can give me strategic advice, she can give me her opinions, and as she's doing it, she could stop any kind of like vague or weird like communication that I gave her, versus like she can't help me if she doesn't know the why. So that's a very big thing from the book.
That's great. Yeah. And you kind of touched on a little bit about mentorship in the beginning, how you leaned on people, right? When you were getting started. How about even like delegation now with your people, but you personally being a mentor? Is that something that you see, because you're such a student of business and entrepreneurship? It just seems like it's something you could give a lot back to others. That's obviously with a child there, not the most time in your hands, but in the future, is that something you feel would be valuable?
Yeah, I'm always, one is like I have a kind of like a hierarchy of like responsibilities, that I feel. And like the first step is like, where do I owe that kind of a relationship inside of my business to my employees, to the assistants that we have? So offering, guidance there so that they can, I really want to continue having an organization that fulfills the people who are spending their time coming to us every day, and like working on the vision of Chatterboss. So I'm in that role a lot inside of the organization for the employees and for the assistants, and then of course with the clients as well. So I'll do work inside of like certain clients that are looking to improve their delegation, that are looking to improve how they're spending their time, to increase their efficiency. So that's something that has naturally happened over the last several years, because when you have an opportunity to see from the bird's eye view what's working, what isn't, you start to really be able to look at an organization or to look at an executive and kind of offer that guidance. So that's been very meaningful work for me as well in that kind of a capacity.
That's great. And well, how about like your business in general? Like, was there something when you started it and to now, maybe like a misconception you had about, hey, maybe this didn't align exactly with what I thought it would be, or maybe this is different than what I thought it was going to be? Was there any point in your business where you kind of felt that?
Yeah, I feel that every day. I think that, one thing that I like, where like expectation versus reality was different. I thought that like there is like a certain amount of like time of running your business that you will get to a point where you're like, I know what I'm doing and like I have it figured out, and like the problems are less scary, because in the beginning there's so much of it. And what I discover every year is that as long as you're pushing and you're growing, which is what we've been doing, you're always facing this new set of problems. You don't have it figured out. And like what I like to say, that as long as we're growing, I've never before had a business of this size. Like right now, I've never had a business of this size before. And I hope that in 6 months from now, I will have not had the experience of having a business of that size. And so that's been very interesting, like the different problems that come up that just force you to shape shift into just new versions of yourself. So I thought that at some point I'd have it figured out, but 7.5 years, like I can say that some things are just as like fresh, for problem solving as they are in day one, which is also exciting because you want to be solving new and different problems.
Yeah, yeah, keep it fresh and exciting. But how about, well, speaking of excitement, like where do you see this going? Like you said, you're 7.5 years in. Where do you want to see this in 7.5 years from now, 10 years, 20, whatever it might be?
So my goal is for Chatterboss to be the number one fractional executive assistant company in the US. And what I know is that that's the goal that I have. That's the goal that the team has. But how that's going to unravel, I don't know. This is a huge market. This is something that's like, it's like such a labor of love. Like it's such a complex service. So it's like, on the one hand, I want growth and I want quantity, and I cannot, by the virtue of just like the way that I operate, by the way that my team operates, I cannot scale without quality. And so we've been growing at a slower pace than perhaps other companies have grown, just because we want to preserve this personal nature. And so I'm curious myself kind of how it's all going to shape up, but I have a lot of passion for this industry. I know that Chatterboss has already contributed so positively to the relationships between entrepreneurs and assistants. We're really leading the way of what healthy relationships look like in that space. The truth is, when I started 7 years ago, there were so many toxic relationships between entrepreneurs and their assistants, and assistants ended up getting burnt out, and entrepreneurs didn't get any of the feedback that they needed to do better. And so also like the respect that like assistants should have as like a really key and powerful member of the team. So there is, there's so much work that we've already done. So that's exciting to see like the effects of like how we've changed like lives and businesses, and so much more to come. So that's where we will be.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't doubt it. Well, you have the .com. Where for people listening that are interested in your services or even like your book, like how can they connect with you and your company?
Yeah, so chatterbossboss.com. If you go to, if you are somebody that is considering working with an assistant, I always say, schedule a consultation. It is a strategy session. It's really an opportunity for us to understand who you are, your business, and as I mentioned, is so complex, but we can help break that down in that conversation to start painting a picture of what it will look like uniquely for you to have an assistant supporting you. So that I'd love to be connected on LinkedIn always, putting out content. On our website, we have the newsletter. We talk about, what new things there are in automation and AI and just like the way that assistants work. So that's valuable. And the book is on Amazon. Yeah.
I'll put all the links in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to get to know you and hear your story. I think you're building a great company, and the success is already there, but very excited to see how it continues. So thank you for taking the time to share your story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Experience Curve. Please take the time to share this podcast with a friend or colleague to help get the word out about my show.